Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to Gigantic. This video is an introduction to the Bruisers, Assassins, and Fighters of Gigantic. So if you're a melee player, this video will really help you, as you'll get a good idea about all the Bruiser characters in the game, and also, if you meet them on the battlefield, you'll also get a good idea about what exactly it is that they can do to you as well. So starting off here, we have Lord Knossos. He's probably the closest thing to a pure bruiser in Gigantic. And what I mean by bruiser is it's that real true tank DPS hybrid. So this guy's a bull that dual wields spears. So just from that indication, you can get an idea of what he's going to do. He's a big, meaty boy, he's going to be up in your face, he's going to be doing lots and lots of damage, and he's going to be chasing you down, while being pretty difficult to bring down himself. He does pay for this by being less mobile than some of the other bruisers or melee fighters in the game, but he does have more health and is inherently just that little bit more defensive. He's definitely the sort of character that the fight revolves around. If he's being aggressive on you and pushing, you need to back off or get out. He is good at chasing people down, so that's really what you want to watch out for with this guy. He doesn't have a huge amount of sort of intricate tricks that he can pull off, unlike maybe Tripp or Tyto or some of the more assassin-focused characters, but he'll definitely do a lot of damage if he's left untouched, and he's pretty difficult to bring down himself. His kit is relatively straightforward. His left click is a standard melee attack combo, his right click is a ranged attack where he throws a spear, his Q is a gore attack that interrupts people on hit, and then his E is a movement speed increase called Bull Rush. His ultimate is also very powerful, which deals a bunch of armor ignoring damage, stuns all the enemies nearby, and inflicts bleeding and cracked armor, so that's a whole lot of debuffs from one ultimate. You can build Knossos in a couple of ways to give him more melee damage, sort of focus on his left clicks. You can focus more on his right click as well, which can actually turn it into a floor targeted sort of rain of spears that slows enemies for a couple seconds as well, which is really useful. You can definitely make him more tanky by focusing on his Bull Rush ability and upgrading that, which when you use it, it gives you a whole bunch of health. So it's really that balance. You can focus much more on a sort of DPS focused build if perhaps you are paired with a more pure tank, or you can definitely be that more sort of sustainable, annoying character by just building yourself with lots of self-healing as well. In general, he's a great bully character. He can really dictate the pace of a game, but if he does have a weakness, that lack of mobility and the fact that his kit is relatively limited in its utility compared to some other characters means that there are times when it feels like quicker characters or ranged characters can run rings around you if you don't engage a fight properly. The next character we're going to talk about is Tripp. Now, when you think of an assassin, Tripp is what comes to mind within the Gigantic context. She's very quick, got very high mobility, very high damage, also has a stealth as well, so she can definitely get in and out of fights very easily. However, the trade-off for all of that, unsurprisingly, is that she's incredibly squishy and very fragile. So she has about 1,000 less base health than Knossos does, for example. So, and on less armor on top of that. She does make up for it with lots and lots of mobility, but yes, she's a very squishy character. If you're a Genji main, or you love playing sort of Zed or any of those sort of assassiny characters in League of Legends, for example, if you're a Zerathor main from Heroes of the Storm, this is the one for you. Again, Tripp moves around the battlefield very quickly. She's all about flanking, hitting that back line, and just using that stealth, very rapid base speed and mobility to just get in there and annoy, harass, and just assassinate people when they're not looking. You can't leave Tripp alone at the back on one of your squishies because they will die. You really need that group effort to all turn and pay that attention to Tripp. And if you can lock her down, she will die really quick. But those good Tripp players are going to be ducking in and out, drawing your team's attention away, and then picking their moment and just going in for the kill and just landing that assassination. Tripp's kit is very much what you would expect from a melee assassin. So her left clicks are very quick, low damage melee attacks. Her right click throws daggers at range, which inflicts bleeding. Her Q is a slide, which she can then reactivate to kick players up into the air. Her E is a stealth, which lasts for 6 seconds on a 20-second cooldown, and that's base. Her ultimate is Blade Storm, which charges forward, stuns the first persons that you collide with, and does a bunch of damage. If it doesn't hit anyone, she teleports back to her original location, so it can also be used as sort of an escape or a move to, you know, sort of try and confuse your enemies if you're trying to stall a point or, you know, trying to run away. The ways that you can build Tripp, she's not particularly versatile. You can build her to do a whole lot more damage and sort of get increased crit chance, sort of do more bleeds, do things that give you like armor penetration, or you can build her to be more mobile, get lots of movement speed, sort of reduce the cooldown on your stealth, sort of slow people, things like that. But at heart, she's less versatile than, say, for example, a Knossos. She's going to fill that assassin role. If you see a Tripp, you know exactly what they're going to be doing. Have you ever felt the need to play a frog that does martial arts? Gigantic has you covered, buddy. Wu is a blend between a fighter and an assassin. So he definitely sits in Tripp's vein, where he's very mobile, still pretty squishy, and does quite a lot of high damage, but he's sort of one step further back than Tripp. He's a little bit more defensive. He's still got that mobility, but he's just that little bit less squishy and has a little bit less shock value. What he does have, however, that makes him pretty unique in Gigantic, as I believe he's the only character to have this, is his E is a tongue lash, which pulls an enemy towards you. So think Blitzcrank, think Roadhog, or think Thresh, or any character in any game with you know, Stitches or whatever, any character that has a grip ability. And I think everybody knows just how powerful those can be. Wu, as I mentioned, is very similar to Tripp in that he's crazy mobile. He focuses a little bit more on disruption and interruption and defense than Tripp, and has less damage because of that. So he's a little bit more well-rounded. But for those people that like jumping into a fight, jumping out again, being that harasser, but again having a little bit more utility and defense, Wu is great. In the original Gigantic, Wu was crazy. He was the most broken character. His ability to control distance and move in and out of a fight was pretty much unparalleled. In this version of the game, he's been toned back a bit. However, he's one of those characters that has a very high skill ceiling. If you're good with Wu, it's sort of one of the scariest things that I remember running into in the game. His kit is pretty interesting. So his left click is a standard 3 melee attack combo. His right click is a splash kick. So you click it once and it kicks people into the air, and then you click it again and then it's a powerful downwards kick. So you can kick people up and then kick people back down again. His Q is called Crashing Waves, so it's 2 attacks. The first one interrupts and the second one does a bunch more damage against people who have been interrupted. His E is a Tongue Lash, again 15-second cooldown, pulls people towards you. And his ultimate is Typhoon's Fury. So this launches, if you hit someone with it, it also gives you a bunch of armor and a whole bunch of damage, a massive damage buff. And this lasts for 4 seconds, but if you're hitting people with attacks, it can extend all the way up to 10 seconds. So it basically turns you into a complete demon, and you just get in there and just start ripping people apart, while also being super tanky. Super fun character to play. Yeah, he's just awesome. Our next character is Tyto the Swift, who's one of the more iconic characters that Gigantic put out. Tyto is very much in the same vein as Tripp, in that he is an out-and-out assassin. He's potentially the most mobile character in the game, doesn't have a stealth, but has really high damage, lots and lots of mobility, and again a little bit more defensiveness than Tripp. Similar to Wu in some ways, but again Wu is a little bit more on the utility side, has, you know, more of that sort of disruption, debuffing style, whereas this guy is much more about jumping in and out, doing a whole lot of damage, and then running away. His weaknesses, again like Tripp, very squishy. He's not quite as squishy as Tripp, but he's got about 200 health more, but still very squishy. Doesn't have a stealth though, and that's the big takeaway, is that Tripp definitely has a get out of jail free card with stealth a lot of the time if you use it to disengage. This guy doesn't have that. He does have more mobility and still that really, really high damage, and ways of giving himself sort of armor and, you know, sort of movement speed increases, but he definitely focuses on mobility even more than Tripp, whereas Tripp gets that stealth. His kit is a left click, so again left click melee attack combo, similar to Tripp, hits a little slower but does more damage. His right click is a leap on a 12-second cooldown, which is super good for mobility, got a 20-yard range. His Q is blade dance, you can think Garen, he spins around, does a bunch of AoE damage. It can be held for a varying amount of time, you get to choose, and the longer you spin for, the more cooldown you get as well. And then his E, he's got a cat sitting on his shoulder, and his E throws the cat out to attack whatever target he's looking at, which bleeds the target for a couple seconds. I think this, more than Tripp, is, you know, if you are a Genji lover, or like a Lee Sin player, or sort of any of that sort of vein where so you really value someone with like super high mobility, maybe Yasuo as well from League, this is your guy right here. In terms of how versatile he is within his role, he is an assassin. You can't build this guy like a tank. You can build him to give himself more damage. You can build him to give himself much more mobility and the ability to sort of reflect projectiles. You can upgrade his E where he throws his cat. If you hit the target with your cat, you can teleport instantly to the target, which is awesome. But yes, this guy is an assassin. He's about high mobility, high damage, getting in and out, harassing that backline. You're not going to get away from that with this character. But why would you want to? The final melee character we're going to take a look at is Ramsay. And Ramsay is probably one of the harder ones to define. I would say he's the most well-rounded fighter. He's got sort of 500-600 more health than the assassins, but still 300-400 less health than Knossos. He doesn't have the tankiness of Knossos, but he's got more damage. He definitely doesn't have damage close to that of Tripp or Tyto, but he's much, much tankier. He's very versatile in what he can do. He's undoubtedly a strong character. My sort of issue with him is that he doesn't fill a tank role and he doesn't fill an assassin role, which means that if you're thinking about building a 5-man team, he definitely brings benefit to that, but his role is much, much harder to define. He is very, very mobile, which is something that is reflected in his kit. So his left click is a standard melee attack, but if you dodge and then use a melee attack, it has a longer reach. His right click is a rush, which is again another dash in the forward direction, or whichever direction you're moving. His Q is a flurry, so a bunch of quick attacks that hit in front of you repeatedly. And then his E, he coats his weapon in poison, so his melee attacks apply poison. That's one of the things that Ramsay really is known for. And so poison, if you weren't aware, is a debuff. It does damage over time on the target. It also reduces healing by 50%, which against certain comps is a very, very big deal. It can really hurt the enemy team's sustainability in like a more protracted fight. I'd probably say he's similar to Wu in the way that you can evolve him and build him during a game. You can definitely focus him on more damage, sort of applying bleeds, putting up poisons, increasing his hit chance, sort of things like that, doing armor debuffs. Or you can focus him on debuffing people more, putting slows down. You can turn his Q, which does a bunch of slashes in front of you. You can make that deflect projectiles, so you're basically immune to ranged attacks while that's going on. Yeah, you can do lots of things to augment your poisons as well, to make it last longer, to make it tick harder. So it's really that sort of utility fighter role, but he's not a tank and he's not an assassin. He is a super interesting character and he's very, very fun to play. I just think you need to understand what exactly his role is on a team. Because again, it's not you're not a bruiser. You don't have that inherent defense that other people have, and you're not an assassin. That doesn't mean he's not effective, because he definitely is, and he has his niche. But I would say he's just a little harder to figure out, perhaps, than someone like Knossos or someone like Tripp. So that concludes the look at the fighters. Tanks are not included on this list. I think I'll do them separately, as their playstyle is very, very different. This collection of heroes that I just spoke about, a lot of them are quite different from each other, but it's the easiest way to group them, I think. Even though, again, there are assassins and bruisers, and they don't necessarily fill the same roles. I think they're closer to each other than alternatives. But please give me an idea about what you would like to hear about next, what sort of roles you want me to cover, be that healers or mages or summoners or tanks. Again, I will be streaming this game when it comes out on twitch.tv/Zane25. But yeah, if you'd love to come hang out and chill out while I learn the game with you guys again, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you next time.